Hello. Hey, thanks for joining me here as we take a few minutes to look at how I process some of the raw line art that I've completed here for Delilah Dirk 2. I'm going to show you how I go from the scan of the original artwork to this, some line art that's ready to use, ready for coloring and text balloons and sound effects and all that stuff. As you can see, here, let me open a new file that I haven't worked on yet. So this is the original scan. As you can see, um, there are no panel borders, and it is not inked. This is, if we zoom into 100% here, you'll see these are all pencil lines, beautiful, glamorous pencil lines, and you can see um, some, well, hopefully you can see two different types of blue line here. If you look at where my cursor is up here, these border lines here were printed out digitally. I scan my little thumbnail roughs in, adjust the images in Photoshop, and then print them out at 11 by 17, which is what you're looking at here, an 11 by 17 page. So these blue borders come from the digital rough. So does some of the lettering, and so does some of the character work. Um, and once I print that out here, you can see some of this fainter blue here is from the digital printout. Some of the further details are done in Prismacolor blue. Um, Again, it's just I do it so that I can get a better, so I can feel more comfortable with it before I take it to the final black pencil line art. And this is the final art. I don't ink it. And I'm going to show you how I take that pencil art and process it so it looks presentable on a comic page. I'm also going to show you how I add in the panel borders. So what we're looking at here, if I open up the image size and attributes here, this is a 600 DPI scan. It's RGB. The RGB, of course, is so that I can pull the blue out, which I'm going to start doing right now. So here's my background layer. That's where my scan is. I'm just going to add a black and white adjustment layer. Zoom in a little bit here, and start knocking out these blues. Take our blue up, take our cyan up, until you can see almost a reverse type effect there. So, there, no more blue lines. Great, perfect. I also don't have my reference for where the panel borders are, but it's, in my experience, that doesn't hurt too much. So not there yet. I'm going to add some curves, and I should say up front that this is not based on any sort of scientific um, method or anything. I just sort of fiddle around with it until it gives me a result I like. In this case, what I want to do with the curves is just add some emphasis, give some more weight to the middle grays, not the black at the bottom, and not the whites up at the top end. I just want to get a little bit emphasis, weight, give us some better middle grays, emphasize them a little more, bring them out so that the line hopefully will be smoother once I knock out the whites and take the blacks up a bit. This is my preset. Yeah, so that's pretty close. Business as usual. Good. Leave those curves alone, and I will add a levels adjustment layer on top of that. So I got my three layers here: my background, my black and white that knocks out the blue, curves that adds a little bit of emphasis to the middle grays, and now I'm going to bring my blacks up so they're nice and dark. Give me a nice solid line. My goal here is to, like I said, give me a nice solid line, and strengthen the lines for coloring underneath. But I also want to retain some of the pencil quality to it. In the first Delilah Dirk book, the line, this is the same process I used, except I treated the pencil line art like I was making an ink line, which is fine. Nice, clean, solid lines. They weren't too sketchy. I tried to keep them real tidy, crisp outlines. This is a little bit more loose. I figured, you know what, since I'm doing this with pencil, I might as well take advantage of the natural effects you get with the pencil. So, I don't know, there's that there's that automatic scrolling going on. Some of this stuff, like the shadow under the arm here. I don't know, some of this grass treatment. This is not maybe the best page for an example, but um, looks more like a pencil line. It reveals its pencil line heritage. So boost those blacks up over here on the levels palette and bring those whites down. So we get something that looks like that. Now our whites are white. And I have a couple variations just because there are a couple. These are all just different presets. Just because, I don't know, some pages scan differently than others. And I use two different types of paper throughout the penciling here. So I'm just fiddling with these now, making really subtle changes that maybe I can only see. I don't know, maybe the YouTube compression destroys any difference you're seeing right now, but I'm just adjusting them by little tiny points till I get something that feels right. Again, this is all done by eye. I'm just trying to use my intuition here. But that looks pretty good. So we'll hide that for a second. Go over here to the layers palette and flatten this image. Really commit to all those adjustment layers. And now I'm going to command click on the RGB channel here to give me a selection of the line work. Go back to layers, create a new layer. I'm going to invert this selection, and well, look, if I didn't invert it, undo select inverse, what I would get is this, and that's not good. So select inverse and fill with black. You can't see it right now, but what we have here is black line art over black transparent line art, I should say. That's what it looks like, except I find this much easier to work with. It allows me to do a few things when it comes to coloring that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if I were just, say, like if I just use this layer as it is and set it to multiply as you know, that's one method of doing it. I prefer to do it this way though. So this layer 2 was just for demonstration, so I'm just going to select all of this and copy it and open up a template which has my final page size. Now this is smaller. It's only a 400 dpi file, but the page dimensions are all much larger than I would need anyway. So 400 dpi is greater than is necessary to send to the printers. 300 dpi is fine. I'm working a little bit larger here so that I can scale the final colored line art down to whatever format it needs to be. If it's going to be big French BD style, then it'll be just a little bit too large. If it's going down to first seconds signature size, then no problem. The proportions are all there. It just needs to get scaled down. So close that. And I'm just going to hide these. You'll see what those are in a sec. And I'm going to paste in my line art. Now, like I mentioned, like I showed you guys, this line art is 600 dpi. The reason I scan in, did I say this? The reason I scan in at 600 dpi is for archival purposes mostly, just to get a little bit of extra detail. It's not technically necessary, but it's nice to have. And I'm paranoid. So with my line art here, why don't we rename that layer? I don't know if that's important, but it'll probably come in handy down the road. And I'm going to scale this down to size. Again, this is a 400 dpi file, but I brought in a 600 dpi scan. So I'm looking at the top here relative to this border and the left relative to this border. I'm going to set the pivot point by option clicking right here. Pivot point for the transform, and option shift to scale uniformly around that point. Make sure everything matches up on the right side. Make sure everything matches up on the bottom. Looks good. And commit that transformation. Now we'll zoom in. Let's hide all those things for a second here. Just make a selection around, because you can see all this cruft from the scan, the number, and some garbage up here in the corner. Who did that? I don't know. It wasn't me. Make a selection around the page border. Looks about right. Invert that selection and just delete everything. So now, nice and clean. So, now let's put some panel borders in here. You will notice, maybe you'll notice. Here, look, I'll zoom in and then we'll all notice. So these were drawn by hand, these panel borders, and scanned separately, because this is how I like to do my panel borders, and it comes from, I do it for speed and I do it for the look. I believe very strongly in few things in life. There are a few very solid beliefs I have. One is that you should never, one ought to never have a ruled pencil line in final art. It's great to use rulers in every other part of the process. That's fine, but I really hate the look of a ruled pencil line in final line art. So these are straight, but still have that nice natural look, that nice roughness to it. I don't want to draw this in by hand on every page because that would just take too long. If I scan them in and do them digitally, as you'll see in a second, I can just throw them around and get them done nice and quick. So here are all my horizontal lines, my horizontal panel borders, and I'm referencing the original file off on my second monitor right now, just to make sure that is in the right spot. So there's one gutter assigned. Let's put this guy right here. Look, he almost started in the right position. That's perfect right there. Now I've got one more in here. I only need one more horizontal gutter. So we'll shove him down there. Get rid of that end of that. Borders. And now turn on my vertical lines. We don't need any vertical gutters up here, so get rid of those. We need two in the middle here. So I'll get rid of that guy, move this guy into position here. And I just need one more over here. Drop him in there. And we don't need any vertical borders on the bottom here. Clean all that up. I'll go in and trim these guys down. And so we have the start of our panel borders. I'm going to flatten all these layers together. I do them on 3 different layers just to give me that the flexibility and the speed to be able to throw them around like that. Flatten them all into one layer. Control E or Command E. Zoom in and begin the thoroughly entertaining process of deleting these little bridges here. Happy little trees. Shh, everybody quiet. Is that everything? Nope. everything? Yes. And from there, we'll just go in and clear out the gutters, getting rid of any stray lines in the middle there. I don't think there are any. Oh, there's some at the bottom there. Trim those guys out. Sweep those guys out of there. And finally, put on the top of this last panel. Boom. So that is what the page ends up looking like. I've got my line art layer, my sort of guide layer. The dark gray indicates stuff that will eventually get trimmed out. Um, but I like to paint. If I have full bleed pages, I will paint to that edge. Anyway, just to make sure again that I've got enough coverage in case I need to scale it to a different proportion or print it a different proportion. I got my panel borders here. Keeping the panel borders on a separate layer from the line art means that later on, when I'm starting to put the balloons and everything in, I have the opportunity to put balloons above or below the panel borders, overlapping or sitting underneath. So these are the layers I need to stay flexible. So I'll just save that guy in, what's the number here? 51. Close and close. Usually this goes a little faster because I've got a lot of this set up for actions. It'll add all those adjustment layers and give me a little pause here to see how this looks. It looks pretty good. Usually the levels is the only layer I'll adjust. And again, just fiddling with it a little bit until I get something I like. Bring that black down a little bit. Good. That done, I can just continue the action. It'll go through and make that line art and ask me if I want to shove it into the template, and I do. So again, I'll just hide those guys so I can see what I'm doing here. Scale it down to the right size, nudge that over, scale. Everything looks good. I don't see too many tangents. Tangents are sort of unfortunate collisions between lines. Like you can see the way the back of his head here butts up into the panel border. That is one of the unfortunate side effects I find. His eye here as well. Unfortunate side effects I've noticed from not having panel borders drawn in on my actual line art is that I've run into a lot of situations where an object will create a tangent with the panel border, and so I've got to do a little work here to try and free that up and fix that problem. It's a small detail, but contributes to the feel. So there it is, scaled into place. I've got an action to trim the cruft from around the panel borders. Done that. Close the actions here. To fix some of the tangents there, I'm just going to nudge this guy. Oh, you know what? I trimmed too soon. Let's back all the way back out. Let's nudge this guy in a little bit. Will he do that for us? Let's keep going. Yeah, let's do that. Does this read as a headbutt? She's headbutting him. It reads like that, right? So I'm going to fix that. Get some, sort of close this off here. Just so that eye isn't creating that tangent again. And we'll go back over here and take a look at him and just sort of maybe I can nudge that one in. A little better. It's alright. Not great, but that'll do for now. If it's still bothering me later, I'm sure I'll fix it. I definitely won't let it go to print if I've still got a problem with it. I'll definitely catch all my mistakes. There we go. Get those horizontal borders in. So, sorry, I forgot to clean out this one. There we go. Back to the borders. Sometimes I just try to use different ones in different spots. So, sorry, different panel borders in different spots so that it eliminates any repetitiveness. I don't know if anybody will pick up on that, but, why not, right? You will. You'll be looking for it now. See, again, here I'm making a tangent up here, but if I put it far enough over like that, we can probably get by. How many do we need here? 2. Oops, it didn't select enough. Enough panel border. That guy there. This one's almost already in place. I need 1 in the middle here. Are those closed up? Just barely not. Get this guy in the middle. And then 1 more down here, so delete all these other guys, shove him over to the left a little bit. And there we go. Buckle up, this is the exciting part. Yes, I have to do this by hand for every page. Yes, it's still faster than drawing them freehand on, well, drawing them on every line art page. I can't remember if this line here is supposed to be intentional, but we'll get rid of it. Because it looks like a mistake. Is that all of them? Yep. Nope. Yep. And now to clean out those borders. Gutters, I mean. So there we go, and then just double check everything, make sure all the lines are in the right panels. Cool. Looks clean. Good, there you go. Ready for text and balloons and sound effects, and then eventually coloring, and then boom. There is your completed page. Hey, thanks for joining me. Thanks for following along. Cheers.